karang sa po, tingnan pa namin sa lahat ng video.
Media educators are learning how to become press freedom.
This corruption in media. No country choose.
Good evening. You are watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. Sitting in for Jing Magsaysay, I'm Claire Sildran. Tonight, we are joined by the heads of alternative media education organizations, Dakila and Rocked. Our first guest, founding board and executive director of Rocked, Gang Badoy. And the second guest is a founding director and president of Dakila, Lourd De Veyra. Good evening, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Hi, Claire.
Hello. So where do we start? Let's talk about Dakila and Rocked. So Dakila, Lourd, Dakila means nobility. So why call the group Dakila? What are its objectives?
It's a collective of artists, actually. No? Well, if not artists, people who try to find avenues of expression through creative means. No? It started in 2005. O 2006 ba?
2005, October kayo.
Ang galing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
I'm part of Dakila, and
Yes.
Lourd is also part of
Rocket.
Rocked.
So there's an incestuous thing going on between the two organizations.
Incestuous. Okay, I love it.
Yeah, so we started out with a simple issue. That time it was the very evil EVAT, that expanded EVAT law that we saw as something oppressive. And then from then on, it expanded into other issues. No? But the main idea is to have a group, to have a collective where people actually spoke about social issues or
Creatively.
through creative avenues. Yes.
And I read something about that it's a nation of heroes and you envision that every person is a hero.
I wrote that sort of manifesto. It's a manifesto.
Manifesto.
At the time when everyone was becoming so grim and ironic and jaded about things. No? To be called a hero, sabihin, paano ba yan? Pabarilin ka sa luneta. So we have to take stock and we have to actually take back the idea of heroism and nobility as something not to be ironic about it.
You mentioned jaded. So do you think people these days are still jaded?
I think we are the most jaded people in the world.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think this is exactly why we formed what we formed, or we're part of what we're part of. I am very jaded, I'm very cynical.
She's
But
the most jaded person in the world.
But I realize parang we have no, I think pinag-usapan natin to dati. Parang when you're faced with high school students or college students, you really have no business being snarky.
Yeah.
You have no business being snarky about lack of faith in the country or etc. Because you know that there are so many things going on, the more you should actually point towards optimism or etc. The Dakila and Rocked are talagang magkapatid yan. We're Rocked volunteers. We have, natawag doon, sa Venn diagram, we have many people in common and we really support each other. At least Rocked we're such big fans of Dakila. When we started Rocked, I was very relieved that half a year later, Dakila officially launched because Rocked is for high school and college and we cannot take up aggressively certain issues. What does that mean? Hindi kami pwedeng mag-super aggressive kasi ang mandate ng Rocked is to provide info so that the young can decide on their own if they want to rally, protest, or not.
And it's
But
still
the-
ongoing.
yours.
It's still ongoing. It's
And
very
then
tough because there's certain issues that I really want to take a solid stand on, but I purposely don't because if I do, we might not be invited to schools as much. For example, if I may speak freely, for example, the RH bill. I can't take a solid stand on it because the Catholic educators invite us to their schools and we don't want them to stop inviting us
And
to
she used to
schools.
be a Catholic educator herself.
I think Dakila is the brave, more set and braver voice that
Yeah.
expresses an issue creatively.
Yeah.
With Rocked naman, we creatively explain.
So they start with
Yeah,
with
sana.
Rocked and
Oh,
then
sana.
graduate to Dakila, something like that.
I think that's the goal. It's not even 101. I keep saying this. It's not even civic awareness 101. It's 50.5.
Okay.
It's the beginners talaga. Make it. I think the main goal, of Rocked at the start was na hindi ma-turn off ang teenager sa civic involvement.
Okay.
Dapat hindi siya ma-turn off. So yun lang yung goal namin.
I'm just curious, what got you started? What inspired you to start an advocacy like this?
there was a frustration in our reaction about allegations towards cheating in elections. I think if you remember that 2005, there were accusations against then President Arroyo that allegedly
Oh,
she
yes.
called the Commission on Elections. And for many of us who embrace democracy, parang we know na if you mess with elections, you mess with everything. Because democracy says you can choose your leaders who will make decisions for you, leaders who will hold your money. You know, yun eh. So when you mess with elections, parang ang laki. So nung time na yun, parang nagtaka ako na, but ito lang yung reaction dun sa Hello Garcia. I'm not, you know,
Hello Garcia,
there's still
scandal.
accusations to this day. Then I realized, oh, I think I'm done with 4-day revolutions. They may or may not work. Most of the time it doesn't. So I sabi ko, I'll spread the revolution. I'll make it 10 years in small pockets in different parts of the country instead of 4 days in EDSA Corner Ortigas. Parang ganun. So yun yung in-imagine ko na reaction siya. So it's a reaction of a jaded person, not an inspired one, hardly.
Okay.
And speaking of
But
jadedness,
it's
clear,
same
no?
thing. Oh.
The DNA of Dakila, we have people who used to be associated with the left, no? And they found, some of these people actually found that some of the old methods did not work or do not work, no? That's why they found cause, no? Na medyo maghanap tayo ng mga kakaibang mga avenues na talakayan itong mga issues.
Yun, and picking up from that, parang inimagine ko na kailangan hindi mo takutin or intimidate or i-alienate ang teenager from participating. Nakakatakot kapag laging rally or may violence. Nakakatakot yan sa 17-year-old, hindi siya papayagan ng nanay niya. Nakaka-alienate pag sobrang jargon. Yung puro abbreviations yung ginagamit mo. Nakaka-intimidate naman kung...
Mga Russian theories,
Yeah, oo.
Chinese theories
Hindi,
of
nakaka-intimidate
revolution.
naman. Nakaka-intimidate naman kung yung forum ay under a religion.
How do you evolve? We started with the concerts and events. So, you know, times are changing, the youth are changing, their interests, their preferences. So how have you evolved since then, since you began?
Well, sinabay...
Change bands.
We changed lineups. Hindi, actually, you'll be surprised at how universal and all-encompassing music is. Film, photography, you know, even, wow, even now I'm so happy that even literary works are interesting. Parang rock stars na rin sila, even the historians. Like, for example, Ambeth Ocampo, pinipilahan yung lecture niya. Xiao Chua, pinipilahan yung lectures niya. So, I guess, because if you're familiar with the music scene, there was a large wave of rock music around 05, and then there was still then the rock station NU 107, and then so did it change? Yes, it evolved because now it included film, photography, literary, visual, and performing arts. Like recently, we actually resorted to getting dance involved. You know, we had a project with Ballet Philippines,
Yes.
Rock Supremo.
Rock Supremo.
Yes,
It's on the life of Andres Bonifacio. And set to a libretto by Ballet Philippines and danced by Ballet Philippines, and that's rare. So I feel like our challenge is really to use the most interesting language. Because alam mo, nung college ako, nung college ako, may mga forum on human rights, women's rights, children's rights, and they're always the most boring lectures. Or minsan 8 ng umaga. Ito ba, the minute you're there sa auditorium, tulog ka lang eh. So I thought, the only goal of Rocket, if you ask me, at the start, in 05, was to replace a percentage of these very important but maybe a bit boring for us. So parang we
So
wanted
this
to
Rock
replace.
Supremo, can you tell us what it's about?
Well,
Or
actually,
is it a
interestingly
secret?
enough,
The ballet.
it's to present many sides of Andres Bonifacio.
Okay.
We have notions of Andres Bonifacio that he's brave. You know, yung the monuments we have, di ba, yung Gardo Versosa na may bolo pa, na macho. So I guess we wanted to present a prism. I think that's the word that Ballet Philippines used. A prism of what kind of human he was. More than revolutionary, more than yung atapang-atao, he was also human who fell in love, you know, who wrote poetry and etc. For me, the reason why I really pushed for it, because I think Andres Bonifacio should be focused on more than who killed him, or more who allegedly killed him, who killed him, how he died. But those are crucial, yes, absolutely. but there's so many other sides to him. So I think that was the dream, to re-present.
Can I bring up the whole hero thing again of
Sure.
Dakila? Because in your manifesto, it said that you unleash the inner hero. So how does Dakila, how do you make it happen?
If you notice that all the hero mythologies, they focus on one specific strength, no? So what happens with us is that every member, you have one particular talent that you want to, utilize for something noble. I hate to use the word, but and we
But
would.
it's a good word.
It's a good word. It's
Based
a good
on it,
word
diba?
that-
Dakila.
it's a good word that eradicates the jadedness in us. We'd like
Pero
to-
picking up from that, you have to remember that the root word of nobility is noble. For us, when we say nobility, laging mayaman. It's not rich. Nobility are those who are noble, meaning generous, thinking of others first.
in
and
the
that's
same way
pretty
that
much
the
it.
idea of ilustrado, hindi lang yung mayaman.
For me, the reason why I'm very supportive and I joined Dakila, I am a volunteer of Dakila, is because they really need to snap us back to the original meaning of the word, which is noble, meaning generous, meaning brave. It was never rich.
So what does that have to do with the organization and what you do?
We have this one of our earlier rituals. I would like to call it a ritual, because I think it's a ritual. No? We tried cleaning the map of the Philippines sa Luneta.
Nandun kami noon.
It's a symbolic idea, no? It's the most accurate representation daw in terms of dimensions and ratio, no, of the Philippine archipelago. And it's been, for lack of funding, it's been neglected by the Luneta management for quite some time.
Okay.
So what we did was try to clean it, no,
Right.
as an act of a symbolic act, no. So because we have this idea of nobility begins with the mind. So before you actually embark on this lofty notion that you try to clean up the whole Philippines, you try to clean up first. You begin with something symbolic.
The most interesting part for me when I joined that map cleaning was they put all the dirt, all the grime, etc., into sacks and put them all on one side and then labeled each sack corruption,
So it's
bribery.
symbolic.
Yeah, all the symbolism.
So it's-
I prefer picturing Dakila's work as saying things that have to be said in the most effective, creative, and
Artistic
symbolic way.
way,
Oo.
right.
Because
Because Rock Ed,
sometimes,
I know
a
Rock
message,
Ed really
sometimes
well.
kasi a message is lost if you didn't say it right.
Right.
Kahit gaano kagaling yung message mo.
Let's talk about the Million People March rally in Ayala. But before we do that,
That's when we get back, right?
when we get back,
Yeah.
that's right. We still have a lot to discuss. News Cafe will return after these messages. And you're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel, and we're still joined by our guests, Gang Badoy and Lourd De Veyra.
Thank you.
Welcome back. So the pork barrel issue and the Million People March in Ayala.
I think one of the challenges, God, I hope I don't shoot myself on the foot. One of the challenges of this pork barrel issue is that it is terribly nuanced, that street protest doesn't do it justice. I think pag street protest kasi baka isang statement lang or dalawa tatlo at most, but then to battle the issue, ang dami. Reform, don't reform, abolish, not the presidential pork, including the presidential pork. There's so many aspects to it. But I personally went with friends and my brothers because I don't want anybody relaxing. I don't want you to imagine that this is over, whoever is accused or possibly will be accused. So I go and lend my voice. Are there several waves of belief, ideologies, solutions offered there? Yes. It's a whole spectrum from extreme left to extreme right.
Yeah.
But just because it's not my one solo statement, that doesn't mean I won't join. I join.
But do you think every issue na lang that we go out in the streets and we protest, is this what, do you believe in that?
There are very many ways to approach a revolution. Tama ba yun? Si Andres Bonifacio nagsabi nun malawak ang revolusyon, kasya lahat. Nung 86, napaka-broad nung statement, Marcos out. So kaya yun, di ba? Kaya yung street, nag-work siya. Ngayon yata, importante pa rin hindi nagsastop magsalita. Pero ang daming kailangan sabihin. So I think even in the way our protests, street protests are created, I think it's also an indication of some progress. Because before we just needed a broad stroke. Now we need a venue, whether it's street protests or otherwise, that has a venue to discuss the finer points, which means I think we moved somehow. You know, that's very optimistic. But we did. I think we did.
Yeah. So let's say let's say, for example, this gets resolved and the pork barrel is abolished. So what's next? Do you think this is just the beginning?
I've heard several opinions, and one struck out. One really stood out. They said, minsan nga, kahit hindi mo na i-abolish yung pork, mas gusto ko nang may pork pero may FOI, Freedom of Information.
Yes.
Kaysa
Regulation.
abolish pork tapos walang FOI, mas mahirap man. So I guess the
Yes.
cry is transparency. The
Yes.
cry is, don't steal my taxes. The cry is that. Now, the other more nuanced cry is, we have to listen to all because that's democracy. That's the price of democracy, di ba?
Right.
Yun yung pressure.
The position of Dakila naman at this point is conviction. Or after the investigations, I think we have to see people being charged for specific
I'm
you
not
know,
speaking.
offenses.
We've seen it happening. You know, left
If
and
only
right.
this administration would put in the same effort that they tried to pin down Corona with the same people behind this pork barrel.
Super sang-ayon ako doon. You know why? It's very important for the next generation, the incoming possible joining the government generation. We have to be able to show them that this is what happens if you steal from the coffers.
Yes.
This is what happens. This is what getting caught when you steal from us looks like. Now, if we don't set that bar, it's so low na, ang baba na ng bar natin for accountability of people who have obviously done us wrong.
And I think this cry for the abolition of pork, okay na to.
Sige.
Sobrang nagulpi na itong isyong to.
Okay,
I think the next issue na dapat gulpihin, dapat i-press is conviction.
While I'm on
Conviction.
Solar
Okay.
News, I want to make a shout out to, I'm cheering Conchita Carpio Morales on. I'm cheering the Ombudsman on. I think she is the key. I think if she is allowed and if she will, I think she will do her job utmost. And I have faith that she will. She will be key.
Okay.
I mean, how can you have all these evidence and all these accusations and no one gets prosecuted, no one gets convicted? How crazy!
We'll
Where
see,
did the money
right?
go?
We'll see where it goes. It's a process, so we'll find out. Now, moving on from the pork barrel issue. Okay, back to Dakila and Rocked. I know that you are you target the youth, and then you have a broader audience or market. But what about, do you have plans maybe educating the underprivileged individuals maybe outside Metro Manila, the ones that are voting and that need
Rocked has been doing
educating?
that.
Well, Dakila and Rocked both in the recent years have spread out to the provinces, absolutely. Rocked is present in about 22 cities now, very active. Rocked Naga will launch. In fact, this month, Rocked Isabella's launching. What do I mean when there are Rocked Isabella's, Naga, Dumaguete, Cebu, Iloilo? There are groups in these cities based sometimes on a coalition of universities. Sometimes a Rocked group, like for example in Cebu, is based on a bar. Even in Cagayan de Oro. The Rocked Cagayan de Oro is a group of friends who hang out in the same bar. It's called Punch Bowl. In Cebu, it's Handurao. And then nagkataon, they all represent their own schools.
But still
and et cetera.
students, still college students.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But there definitely is a extreme effort to reach out to those who have no access to forums that we go to. So public schools, yes, that's the dream.
Okay.
But we have been doing that in the form of teacher training.
Okay.
Parang ganun muna. But my dream, of course, should be more widespread than that. Now also, we still continue building libraries for provinces, Cordilleras to Mindanao.
And then during the Ondoy and Peping typhoons, I think it was through your radio station. Now there's the Zamboanga crisis that just happened, and then we have thousands of displaced residents. So, or do you have plans, or are you doing something?
We're focusing on school supplies. We're helping DepEd collect school supplies for Zamboanga. But I must say this. there has been an improvement with the SWD. Seriously, I mean, many of us are not big fans of government work, but because I think it's moving, we have a little less responsibility as private citizens. And in terms of responding kaagad. Kasi, ang galing ng mayor, na-asikaso niya kaagad.
And that's supposed to be the goal of government, right?
The goal of government is to make private citizens like us not worry about relief of it's their job.
The ideal government is to render inessential NGOs.
Yes, and the goal of an NGO is to be obsolete. That
Yun dapat.
you incur changes enough in the government so that you have no need to have your NGO anymore.
I think it's just part of culture that people just want to do something and
Oh, it's just
help
as governance.
Hindi, kulang lang talaga. Kulang talaga. Sometimes, di ba, it means non-government organization, which means it's an organization that
Kasi
does...
pwede naman tawaging organization.
Yeah, it does
Bakit
what-
kailangan ilagay pa yung non-government?
Because it does what the government ought to be doing. That's where it comes from. Because sometimes the G is not so old.
So what is the greatest reward of doing what you do?
We had bands, usual bands,
It was the
rap metal
first
bands.
Malinis, please.
Oo, okay. We have bands na parang they attract the most. We call them orcs, no? Charitably, we call them orcs.
Yung super metal. Yung super,
Metal,
Oh,
tattoos,
hard metal, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
reeking
Okay.
of alcohol
Okay.
and other bad substances.
Okay.
We have people approaching us backstage. It was a few months before the elections. And they were asking us, sino ba dapat namin iboto? Okay, yung sinasabi ni Gang kanina, that's when the jadedness stops. Because you're actually placed in a position where you realize that, okay, whether you like it or not, some people actually depend on your opinion.
Okay.
And that's the scary shit.
Yes. The
Sorry, scary
thing.
aspect.
Okay.
Aspects. Very concept about it. But going back to I remember this very well because we had a really intense conversation that's like 3 minutes during that day.
And
It
why?
was May
Why is it
2005.
scary?
No, May 2005. We had a concert called Malinis Please. It's to ask for clean and honest elections. We asked everybody to come in white, but it was a wild concert. Putek, all these loud bands and etc. And then a group of up to no good looking kids really approach us and say, Kuya, ask him, sino ba kailangan namin iboto? And you don't expect that from people who look like they'd rather be in the streets than asking social civic questions. And then I
So you gave
distinctly
this really,
remember Lourd saying, Gang, I think this works. I think it works because they're asking questions now that make that's valid or valuable.
First, you give this really parang flimsy answer na parang
Kahit sino gusto
dismissive.
niya.
Wala kayo. Pero hindi sila umaalis until I
Until they
think this
get it.
generation kasi, they have no patience for abstraction, black and white, or they have to see it black and white, or they have to hear it. Parang ganun yata. Which, I think,
They
may
need-
advantage
they
and
need to be
disadvantage
told.
din. This is a generation, pag nagtitweet sila, parang 10 things that you must do in order to be fashionable, or 10 things you must do in order to save the environment. Yung malinaw.
Mabilis.
So
Malinaw.
basically, you're saying that you have a voice and these kids, they listen to you.
Ang problema dyan
They
kasi,
listen to you. So
ang problema kasi
It's
you
very
have a
uncomfortable,
huge
but maybe some
influence.
do.
Kasi hindi naman namin,
On them.
we did not set out to say na, we have a plan, we have a mission.
Oh, that was
ito
not
yung-
the plan
hindi
at
ganun.
all. Oh.
Yeah.
In fact, this is probably why there are certain stands I'm very cautious saying publicly because we always find ourselves in a position where kids ask us, college students ask us hundreds, questions ad nauseam. Unless I have a sure stand, I won't bring it up.
Finally, are there other people following your footsteps? And if there are, and I'm sure there are, what's your advice? What advice can you give them?
If you want to be like Lourd or be like me, change your mind. You have to be exactly in your context, your set of talents, your competencies, and
Actually, the idea
go from there.
of people trying to follow in our footsteps is nightmarish.
Oh God!
Because
I
the
hope
idea
not.
of the things we do, no?
Not
From-
literally, maybe
from
their own
advocacies
way.
to no? These are all mandated by the government dapat. This ought to be what government is doing.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's still people who are trying to do stuff that we do will be a big disappointment. The idea of, di ba, NGOs and advocacy groups parang the idea of good
NGOs
government
these
is to
days.
render things, stuff like groups
Be
like
as
us
Okay.
In a sense,
dapat,
irrelevant.
In the sense, I have one answer pala. If in the sense that with whatever we had, we tried to do something that would contribute, then yes, by all means follow. Because hindi ako political family, hindi ako celebrity si Lourd. Di ba?
Oh, just
Pogi
one
lang
last
si
question
Lourd
for you.
eh.
Would you
Laki
ever,
lang
would you
ako.
ever
Oh, pogi
run? Would you ever run? Because I know your father
Would
is
I
a
ever
justice.
run?
Yeah, would you run for?
No. I will
Okay.
never run for
And-
public office.
I would
no.
run probably the 5K.
If we barely make it. But yes,
Well.
we're not the traditional people who start things. Meaning, we're not billionaires, we're not, pogi lang siya. Tapos medyo cute lang ako every now and then. May every now and then pa.
Well, guys,
But, siguro with whatever resources we had, parang, in a sense, sinulit ko. Tingin ko sinulit din ni Lourd. And that trait, then go ahead and imitate
Yes.
that trait in your context.
thank you again so much for coming in. Sana we had more time. Unfortunately, that's all we have. That's all the
Didn't
time
chase
that
the
we
dog, diba?
we have for today. Thanks to Gang Badoy of Rock Ed and Lourd De Veyra of Dakila for
Cheers.
being with us tonight.
Coffee.
It was a great
Good
time. Join us again next Thursday for another round of discussion here on News Cafe. Sitting in for Jing Magsaysay, I'm Claire Saldran. Good night.
Sa karanasan ko po, yun ang ba nakasalanan ng